Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the fifth episode of the webinar series, Into the Mind of an Achiever. So before I introduce the guest of today's webinar, let me tell you a little bit about USP. USP was founded in 2007 by Mr. Ujjwal Narayan OK. It's a training institution, and all the courses at USP are based on science of thoughts. We believe that before every action, there are techniques. We can instigate the actions and we can reach the results that we want. All the techniques taught at USP, new and patented. So far, since 2007, USP has trained more than 30,000 people across the country. And these thousands of people have successfully used or implemented the techniques taught by USP to improve their life in terms of career, in terms of their health, in terms of relationships, in terms of quality of life, and in terms of health, mental as well as physical. One of the initiatives of USP is this series of webinar, Into the Mind of an Achiever, where we invite people from different walks of life.
I feel that Rahul, your bandwidth, there seems to be a connection problem. I'll take it over from here. He was talking about USP and yeah, Rahul, can you please start again?
The fifth episode of this honor and privilege to introduce. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the initiative of USP is this series, webinar series, Into the Mind of an Achiever, where we invite people from different walks of life who have achieved some phenomenal success in their respective field and made a difference to the society. Today in this series, we are on the fifth episode, and it's my honor to introduce the guest of today's session, Mr. K.S. Krishna. He's currently the Chief Secretary of Assam. He's an alumnus of Stephens College, Delhi, and a postgraduate in physics. He's a 1985 batch IAS. During his service, he has worked as a Deputy Commissioner of Undivided Sonitpur and Kamrup District. He was a Managing Director of Assam Tea Corporation, was a Secretary of Food and Civil Supplies, was a Commissioner of Excise, was a Director of Tea Board of India in New York for 3 years. He was Director in Prime Minister's Office, was Joint Secretary in Ministry of Finance for Government of India. He was an Additional Secretary in Ministry of Agriculture in Government of India. Also, an Additional Chief Secretary in Home and Political Affairs, Revenue and Disaster Management for Assam District. During his tenure, he has taken some phenomenal decisions and implemented some revolutionary schemes and was instrumental in applying and developing some policies that not only help Assam, but the country as a whole. We'll talk about that during this conversation. One special mention here that he has traveled more than 40 countries and he has written a book, Wanderlust, about his travel experience to these 40 countries. So on behalf of all the audience and Team USP, I welcome Mr. K.S. Krishna. Welcome to this webinar.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you so much.
And with him in conversation, we have our own, the founder of USP, Mr. Ujjwal Narayan OK. He's an alumnus of IIM Ahmedabad and a 1985 batch IAS. That's quite a rare combination. But during his 35 plus years of experience with the services to Maharashtra State, he has headed different departments like SRAs, Social Justice, Women and Child Development, Textile, just to name a few. One special mention here that he's the only bureaucrat to have received the prestigious Mother Teresa Award for his phenomenal work against human trafficking while he was still in service. He has founded USP in 2007, and even after his retirement in 2017, he continues to give it back to the society with the trainings at USP. So a warm welcome to you, Ujjwal sir. And
thank you, Rahul.
With this, and with these two stalwarts in the panel tonight, I would be moderating this event. My name is Rahul Pawar. I'm a postgraduate civil engineer. I'm an entrepreneur running my own company, and I'm associated with USP since 2010, having trained more than 25,000 people across the country and continue to do so. So all of us in India, at least, we start our day with the flavor of Assam, with a cup of tea. But tea, is there anything more than tea to Assam? We'll find it out. But as they say कि जब मिल बैठते हैं दो यार तो बहुत बातें होती है, और जब दोनों दोस्तों की बातें होगी तो I don't think मुझे कुछ बात करने का मौका मिलेगा. So I would be happy to take a back seat and hand it over to Ujjwal sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rahul. And well, there's one thing in the introduction which I must say, and that is that I and Sanjay belong to the same college. We are both Stephanians. So that was something which is common between both of us. And Sanjay, it's been quite some time since I met you. And beginning your life journey from a town of Jorhat, and on to Guwahati, to Delhi, then to New York, and now you are the Chief Secretary of Assam. How has been this journey? And what would you say has been the trail of experience which you had? I think you're on can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Please. Yeah.
Thank you, Ujjwal. Thank you for inviting me for today's this meet. It's great to talk to you and Rahul. Yeah, I was born and brought up in Jorhat. Jorhat is a small place in Assam. And I spent my whole schooling in Jorhat. In fact, I started my lower primary school in Jorhat and then went on to complete my class 10 in Jorhat. And those are the days when, we used to go to the colleges for doing our 11th and 12th. That's called pre-university. So that's how I came to Guwahati. Cotton College is one of the most reputed colleges in Assam, where I did my pre-university in science. And after that, I was lucky to get into St. Stephen's College, and then I did my graduation in Stephens. It has been a great journey for me in a sense. I came from Jorhat to Guwahati, then I came to Delhi and, for education. And I come from a family, it's a middle class family, but most of the people are educated people. In fact, my grandfather or my father or my mother, everybody had their education, proper education. So always, they gave importance to education, proper education. So always there is an atmosphere in the family that we must all do well in our future. So that has been, the journey as a student.
Wonderful. But what really inspired you to get into the IAS?
Ujjwal, that is a very, very interesting story. When I was a 4-year-old boy, I used to be with my grandparents in Jorhat mostly because my father was in the government services. He used to get transferred. So they used to keep me, for education purposes so that I don't get disturbed. So I used to be mostly with my grandparents. One day, my grandfather took me out for a stroll. And then, I saw a big bungalow. I just asked my grandfather, whose bungalow is this? So my grandfather told me that this is the bungalow of the deputy commissioner, the district magistrate. And then I asked him, who is he? And my grandfather told me, that one day in your life you must stay in this bungalow. And that is the time the deputy commissioner was going out of the house, and his car number was number 1, ASJ number 1. I still remember. And my grandfather told me that, one day you must sit in that car. So I just asked him that time that how to get into that. So that inquisitiveness remained, and my grandfather always helped me to, build me in that direction. He told me, what to do, how to go ahead, and all this. I was 4-year-old, so my aim was always to become a deputy commissioner, the district magistrate, nothing else. I remember when I was in school, class 7th or 8th, then some teacher asked all of us, what is your future plan? What do you want to be? Most of the boys said, I'll become engineer, we'll become engineers or doctors. Then he came and asked me, I said, I want to become a deputy commissioner. So, and by the grace of God or whatever, my hard work or whatever it is, I could make it to IAS. And when I made it to the IAS, my grandfather was still alive. So that was a great satisfaction for me.
I think it must have been a proud moment for your grandfather and it must have been a proud moment for you to go and tell him that I have fulfilled the dreams which you showed me. And
yeah, I was in Delhi. I was in
you,
Delhi that time, those days, there's no telephone at home. In fact, very few people had telephone in 1980s.
Okay.
And the mobile is out of question. So I went to Janpat. There is a telegraph office, and I sent a telegram to my grandfather, of course, to my father,
Eastern
as well
Court.
as to some of my friends.
Yeah.
Eastern Court, you're right, yes. Then within a few days, I went and met my grandfather and the parents. And so it was a great feeling, of course, and they were very happy. And I was very happy that I could give that happiness to them.
Yes. I think that's something which, getting the results out and seeing your name is one of the things which one never forgets.
yes.
So, did you finally get into the car number 1?
Did you?
Did you get into the car number 1?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah, of course, or not in ASJ1 because that was my home district. So I could not be posted as DM there. But, I was posted in Sonitpur district where ASD1. And then I was posted in Guwahati in the Kamrup, undivided Kamrup district at the ASK1.
Okay.
I used 2 ones.
So right now you are numero uno, as they say, number 1 in the bureaucracy in Assam. Okay.
Thank you.
So after you joined the IAS, what were the early experiences which you got? Anything interesting there?
See, when I joined IAS in 1985, this was a transition period in the history of Assam. In a sense, Assam Gana Parishad came to power in 1985. It's just like, we always say they also 1985 batch. So we also 1985 batch because they came, after the accord with the prime minister, and most of the ministers, including the chief ministers, were in early 30s. So they're very young, inexperienced, but there's a will to work. But somehow by the time we were eligible to become the district magistrates, Assam was in turmoil. The Ulfa movement, the Boro movement, and they all started. It was very, very, very dangerous time, in fact, to work. And I remember most of the officers were, in fact, reluctant to be posted in the districts during that time. I was posted in a district called Sonitpur, and which was considered to be one of the Ulfa infested districts. I spent 2 years there. But, it was a challenge in a sense, people lost confidence on the government. So I used to go to the villages almost every alternate day, used to take police officials, army officials, and other people also. And, that confidence building measure was very, very, my first priority, in fact, the most important priority during that time. And I visited many, many villages during that time, talked to the people, talked to the villagers. And most of the villagers were that time sympathetic towards the Ulfa. So it was very difficult for us to convince why they should come back to the mainstream. And putting force always doesn't help. It helps to get out of some of the rogue elements, but to get the confidence of the people, somebody has to speak to them. And I believe that I was very young that time. In fact, it was just 31-year-old. Even less than 31 that time, but I could do that, and somehow my confidence or goodwill of the people that I didn't have to face any problem. I'll give you a small story. One day I went to a place. There was a meeting in a temple. There's not inside the temple, but that a veranda and all. So we all sat. There are quite a few people. The people belonging to some political groups also were there. It was a basically peacekeeping type of a peace, bringing peace to the area. And there are some other people. Then I saw some of the very young people in front of me, very suspicious kind of characters. So the SP was sitting next to me. He said, "Sir, we should leave early as possible." I said, "Okay, well, let's finish it off, finish the meeting off." Then SP had to go somewhere, he left. So I was there for some time with my few officials, discussed, Then I came back. As I was going about 2-3 kilometers, I got the message to wireless. The person who was sitting next to me was shot dead. So later on, somebody told me that because of the goodwill, the people did not try to shoot him there, so that I don't get a bullet by mistake or something. So that was something I believe that it was because of the goodwill they had towards me, that they didn't want to harm me directly or indirectly. So those kind of situations we had gone through during that time.
That's really very, very, I would say it's a very serious kind of an experience which you had.
Yeah.
I do remember 2 of our batchmates have fallen victim to this kind of terrorism. That was L.V. Reddy from Nagaland, and we
Yes.
had
G. Krishnaya.
Krishnaya in Bihar. When both of them they got violently killed. Good thing that that day you were saved, and I'm sure, because I do remember Sanjay, that once when I had come as an election observer in Moregaon,
Yeah.
and you had very kindly given me a lot of information and directions and how to do, and you had told me that whenever you go to any area for inspection, do not come back by the same road. You can't come from a different road, otherwise the fear of mines and bombs and all that. At that time also,
but let me tell you, Ujjal, today Assam is very peaceful. Very, very peaceful. For the last 10 years, I would say this is one of the best states at present. No problem at all, nothing else, no law and order scene, no
excellent
activities.
Yeah, that I know. We all know that, but I'm talking about those days.
Even I'm also talking about, but that perception should not be there. That problem is
not
still
at
there.
all. I mean, that was a very, very serious time, I must say. With Bodoland and so many other things happening. But it's so nice to hear that things are so peaceful, and that area is beautiful, because Assam is one of these states which I really love. It's not only for the tea which I have every day, like Rahul said, but also for the rhinoceros and for the beautiful Brahmaputra which we see there. And Jorhat has got such lovely tea gardens. Well, courtesy you, I had I spent a couple of nights with our batchmates. But it's a very, very peaceful place, and I would say that on your behalf, I would say that people should visit Assam. It's a lovely.
Most welcome. People must visit. Yeah. It's one of the beautiful states in the country.
Yes, it is indeed. You did some very, very remarkable things. I know that you converted a dump yard into a beautiful park, and coloring of buses. These are the things which we said that the title of the talk itself is micro focus. Getting macro development through micro. I have seen that in your life, in your career, you have been focusing on very, very small things like this. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, few things I can always say. One was Guwahati was not a capital of Assam. Shillong was the capital of Assam. 1972, all of a sudden the capital moved to Assam. The capital moved to Guwahati. Then Dispur became a capital, and there is a great rush of people to come to Guwahati. So a lot of people from all over Assam and Meghalaya and all, they moved to Assam, and especially to Guwahati. Then what happened? Guwahati used to have a lot of low-lying areas, which were natural water reservoir kind of areas. Slowly, people started encroaching onto those areas. And how to fill up those areas? They used to cut hills. Guwahati has got beautiful hills all around. And very, very reputed people. In fact, once they get a plot of land, low-lying areas, they will send somebody to cut the hill, and hill land will come and fill it up. This was one challenge I took it. I said, no, we should not allow, we cannot allow to, this environment to go. Guwahati is beautiful with the hills and the river. I must maintain. So this was one step I took. First, I of course imposed 144. People didn't bother much about it. Then I talked to the police officials, got a special group of people, and then my officials, 24 hours, day and night, they were just moving around Guwahati city. If there is any truck found with the load of this thing, immediately we used to arrest them, put them. This went on for about 2 years, and it really helped to maintain the environment, protect the environment in Guwahati. And I always think that this is one of my biggest contributions in a way to, help people to have a proper environment. But there's another problem, of course, what to do with those low-lying areas. We need to fill it up also. So I allowed the sand in the Brahmaputra. In the winters in Guwahati, in and around Guwahati, the river is full of sand. So, if you can remove the sand, it is good for the river also. So that is how we allowed, those sands to fill up those low-lying areas where it is feasible and practical. This is one I thought that, I should share. Secondly, River Brahmaputra is close to Guwahati. It flows very close to Guwahati city. But somehow that beautification was not there. Whenever I used to come from the airport to my office, there's a stretch where it is close to Brahmaputra, but this was a dumping ground. Next to that was a fancy bazaar where those all rotten potatoes, onions, everything was thrown there. And there's a bamboo market. I said, enough is enough. I immediately removed everything. They went to the High Court. I had to fight the case in the High Court. I won. Then whole area was converted into a park, and beautiful park. And now, I feel so good when I see people after 25 years, I see people still going and walking in those areas. So, these kind of small things. And during that time, I went to USA for a training program. And I saw there the school buses, the yellow color buses. That really helped in the sense that people know that these are the school buses carrying school children. They need extra precautions. And I have seen in USA, if you have a school bus, nobody can even cross. The bus will stop with the stop sign and everything will wait behind. Here, nobody used to, listen to those. Nobody used. So first thing I did is that I made all the school buses in Guwahati, one color, yellow color. With that also, city buses also used to have about 1,000 colors. I changed everything to a red color. So, that helped. Small things, these are small things. But, it helped to identify, and, people used to recognize that what is way and all. So those are small things I contributed, and I'm very happy that, I did it in 25 years back, but which are still there.
They may look small, but these are, very fundamental changes, because yellow color, yellow and black is the most clearly visible color. And if you, all over the world, the safety signs are always in yellow and black. If you find that there's something which is low lying, to watch your head, they will paint it yellow and black.
Yes.
So it was a great thing which you did, because from far away you can see the bus and you know that there are children inside. Excellent. And I'm sure the people of Assam will always remember you for this. Okay. Now, talking about experiences thereafter, you worked with some very, very senior people, and I know for a fact that you're one of the very few people who had the privilege of having breakfast with Mr. Manmohan Singh. I'm sure my viewers would like to hear about that.
Ujjwal, in 1993, I joined as Deputy Commissioner, District Magistrate in Guwahati, Kamrup District. At that time, that was the year when Dr. Manmohan Singh became, the previous year he became the MP from Assam, Rajya Sabha seat, and he was the finance minister. 1993 was the time when MP-led schemes were introduced. It was not there before that at all. So one day I got a letter from Finance Minister's office asking that I must go and see him in North Block. So that was a great, it was a great expectation for me that time, because, officer of 32, I was just 32, 33-year-old, 8 years of service, and going and meeting the Union Finance Minister in his chamber was something which I never thought I will get the opportunity. I went next day to Delhi. He called me to his chamber, came to the sofa, and discussed about what to do in Guwahati. from his fund as well as normal, whatever, and discuss quite a few other issues, law and order issues and all. So it was a good 45 minutes discussion. So as I was going out, he said, when are you leaving for Guwahati? I said, sir, I'm here tomorrow. I have a personal work. I'm going back day after tomorrow morning. He said, please come and have breakfast with me tomorrow morning. So his PS was that time one officer of 1980 batch. And I came to his room. He said, Sanjay, you know, he has invited only 3 people in his life for breakfast at home during that period as a finance minister. I'm not talking about one was Pakistan's finance minister, one is Japanese finance minister, one is World Bank, somebody who came probably World Bank president or so, and you had a 4th one. So, and he said I have been working with him for last 3 years. He never called me also. So it was a great experience. Next day I went to his house. Very simple. Madam Singh was serving breakfast to us, me and finance minister at the table. And after the breakfast, I said, sir, I take your leave. Thank you so much. No, I'll come and see you. He came all the way, opened the door of my car. I was really, you know, astonished. And then I realized, you know, if you have quality, you always, you know, slightly different than many others. So it was a great experience for me. I have a lot of respect for him. And of course, I have respect for all the big people under whom I have worked.
Yeah, the quality of humility, the quality of being simple. Even my experience, I have seen that very, very people, you know, the senior people whom people hold in so much great respect, they are the most humble.
Yes.
They're really simple in their lives. And I think that is a message which we must convey to the young people of our country, that it's humility which really takes you places.
Being humble, you don't lose anything. You gain so much. You gain so much respect, love, affection. You gain.
That's right.
So
that's right.
That was an experience.
Now, you took over as chief secretary in one of the most difficult times, that is the present times of COVID-19. I think as soon as you took over, the virus came and hit everywhere. So I'm sure, I mean, I have been following up your work and the work of several of our batchmates, I keep finding out. But all of us, you know, all the people who got into senior positions during these times, they have been having sleepless nights. What has been your experience as a chief secretary in handling this COVID-19 situation in Assam?
Ujjwal, I joined on 31st of December 2019. So immediately after 2.5 months, the COVID came. So it was very, very difficult. It was something, you know, once in a century kind of experience. Nobody had any experience about it. We never read. In fact, in our training programs, nobody taught us about pandemics, how to handle a pandemics. You know, you are taught to handle any other issue, flood problem, extremist problem, war situations,
earthquakes.
Earthquakes. Pandemic is something, you know, which never taught and nobody knew. And we used to hear about plague and Japanese encephalitis and Spanish flu, all those things. But, you know, I never imagined. I thought, you know, in this century, nothing will happen. And even if it happens, within a few days, it will be over. But the lockdown was something, you know, different experience. I've never seen lockdown. We had to really enforce lockdown. Lockdown declared by the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, on 25th of March, had to be enforced fully. And in Assam, I can tell you very proudly that we really enforced lockdown 1, 2, 3. It was full in Assam. And I can tell you that, you know, during that period, not many cases in Assam. In fact, it was in a single number. Once we started getting people from outside, that was the time when we started getting more and more cases. And then, of course, you know, social transmission within the state. Now, I can tell you, see, most important challenge during that period was that, you know, people were inside their houses, nobody was coming out. You have to provide them food. You have to provide them water. You have to provide so many other things, medical facilities. So, this was a challenge. Now you have food material coming from outside by train. Train reaches a station in Guwahati or any other place. There's nobody to unload all this. The railway general manager used to be in touch with me. He will say, please do something about it. So I had to talk to the deputy commissioners, get some laborers to unload. You get those people, unload it. Since it is a food material, it will go to either FCI or somewhere else. But then the general manager tells me that it is not only essential commodities. There are a lot of non-essential commodities like tiles, irons, cements, and unless and until we unload those, the racks cannot go back. So that was another challenge.
Oh, yes.
You had to get those people. You have to find out who are the people who ordered all these things. So it is a big challenge for the administration. Secondly, say vegetables, other milk, all these items to be distributed to various places. We do not have that kind of procedure of supplying food items to various homes. There's always you have community neighborhood shops where people go and buy, but we really had to do that. Then another thing was the milk. A lot of milk was wasted, but you can't help it because your hotels and restaurants are closed. So milk cannot be consumed. So much of milk cannot be consumed. So you really had to do a big plan. And I can tell you that every morning at 11 o'clock, me, DGP, Additional Chief Secretary Home, Additional Chief Secretary Food and Civil Supplies, Transport Commissioner, we used to sit every day. It was like a war room. And every day we used to monitor, and the whole district was informed of various actions to be taken by the deputy commissioners. So it was a great challenge. And I always believe that, I'm lucky in a sense, I became a chief secretary during a very, very tough time. And, I always feel that, as a civil servant, working in a challenging situation is the time when you can really show your real color. If you can really do well. And that is the time where people look for you. Normal times to anybody, you sit and anybody will do anything, and the life will go on. But difficult times like this, once in a century. So when I look back now, I think that yes, I could give my best. Whether I could improved or I could have given better, I do not know that. But when I talk to people, and I find that okay, so during that period, the performance of the administration, the state administration, district administration have been very, very good. They appreciate it. And for that, one person cannot do it. It is a group of people, the people in the secretariat and the deputy commissioners and health officials and Anganwadi workers. They really work very, very hard, all of them. And they all deserve full appreciation and respect from all of us.
Excellent. The whole crux of it comes out that the team worked, and you as the team leader were there with them. That is the beauty of leadership, and that's what I always say, that the best leader always moves along with the team instead of just giving directions. It's there with them. Your appreciation of the Anganwadi workers and the field level functionaries is really, I must appreciate that, because
thank you.
This is something which very few people you have appreciated, the cutting edge people.
They are the people. They used to move around. They used to. And another thing I can tell you, Ujjal, is that when there's a lockdown was going on, it was very difficult to enforce in the urban areas. The rural areas, it was very easy. In a sense, people used to close down. They used to put the gates at the entry point of the district because they're very conscious about it, and they never allowed anybody. And I have seen one boy came from Kerala. He reached the village without informing anybody. Immediately, that information came that so-and-so has reached, he's not well. So medical team went, brought him to the hospital and all. So.
I see a picture of Mahatma Gandhi behind you. And it was his, he used to have the faith in the villages. He would always say that India lives in its villages. And this is an experience which even I had, that the people in the rural areas are more amenable to discipline. They are more conscious about what is the way out. If an instruction is given, they really follow it. Urban areas, we find that it's not as as well
different
as
kind of people.
the different people, I must say. So. Okay, what would you like to advise the youth? Because amongst our viewers, we have a lot of people from the young age group, a lot of people who want to aspire to civil services, a lot of people who are in the mid-career also, but with such a dint of experience which you had, what would be your advice to the youth of India?
The first and foremost is that you must know what you want to be. That you have to really, in your life, you have to decide. Once you know what you want to achieve in life, you have to really focus on that, how to get that. Thirdly, being an honest person really helps. You must remain honest to yourself and honest to the community and the society. And of course, you have to be sincere whatever you do. It is, I think, if you have these 4 things in mind, you become a good citizen, and directly or indirectly you contribute to the country. And I believe that you have to be honest, sincere, hardworking, and focused. These 4 things, if you have that, I think you will always be successful in achieving your goal. Secondly, I always believe, as a government servant, everybody does their own duties, more or less. If a file comes to me, I'll do it, say, today. Somebody will do it tomorrow. Somebody will do even quicker than me. But if you can go an extra mile to help somebody with that mentality, probably that gives you more satisfaction in life. And that person also gains because of your going extra mile. I always believe, and I always request all young people that, in life, try to go that extra mile. You are not going to lose anything by going that extra mile, but that will help another person, which will bless you, in fact.
Yeah.
So, and that is, this is a simple philosophy, I think, in life one has to.
Yeah,
follow.
I can actually say that you actually see the person, not the file papers, but you see the person behind the file. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yes. I always thought, a few days back, I saw a file, a lady whose husband was also a civil servant. Husband died of cancer 4 months back. The lady is also a civil servant. And she was running around for his medical bills. And I felt very bad. Then I called the file. I saw the small things, It was even that person can always write that, he was a civil servant also. It was not necessary that somebody has to certify. Then I have given an order that, all department must clear this kind of files by 10th of September. And I'm very happy that, it was followed.
It was done.
That going an extra mile, the extra mile, it just helped a lot of people. So that's what I say, going out of the file, as you say that, if you have the person in your mind, the person in front of you, that helps.
Yeah, it does. In fact, not only symbolically, but walking an extra mile helps us for health also.
Yeah.
I'm an avid walker. I walk a lot.
I do.
Okay, that's excellent. We have some questions, and of course the panelists are there. So I would like to invite the panelists to, if they would like to ask questions, because that's their privilege. But in the meantime, while they prepare for the questions, and people are also requested, if they want to ask questions, they can put in on the question and answer section. Some questions have already come, so I must ask them on behalf of the viewers. The first question, very early asked by Prayoska, is what is the best time to visit Assam?
Oh, see, from October 1st to March 31st, I think that is the best time to visit Assam.
Okay.
In a sense, the floods are over, winter sets in, and Assam doesn't have a very severe winter like Delhi. So, but you have a good feeling of, that wintry feeling.
Yeah.
And most of this uh, forest are open. Kaziranga is open, Manas is open. So that's a good time to come.
And I'm sure one can see the rhinoceros there in the Kaziranga.
Rhinoceros are there all through, but visitors are allowed, the tourists are allowed from 1st October.
Okay, okay. So that's the time to visit.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, the tea gardens are, I'm sure the tea gardens also would be looking beautiful in that season.
This is the peak season of the tea garden.
Okay.
This is the second flush,
okay.
July, August. That's a beautiful tea garden. Tea gardens are generally, teas are not plucked during the month of November, December, January, because it doesn't grow that time.
Okay. How was your experience representing tea in New York? Are they, because I have heard that British people drink a lot of tea, but the Americans generally prefer coffee. This is a personal question from my side.
Okay, Ujjal, let me just briefly tell you this English breakfast and Irish breakfast is very famous because they are the real good tea. And they generally prefer Assam tea because Assam tea is unique. It's very strong and it has got a very strong color. If you are sleeping, it will wake you up. So tea is that good. Then when I was posted in the United States, as you said, USA people generally prefer coffee, but don't forget about iced tea. Iced tea is also equally important, but for iced tea, you don't need a very strong kind of a tea. It's just ice is the tea base. My duty was to increase the India's, tea, to popularize Indian tea in the United States for 3 years. Not only United States, Canada, and South America also, but mostly focused on these two countries, Canada and USA. But I'm very happy to say that, it increased. It increased from 3 lakh tons to, by the time I left, it was 10 lakh tons.
Okay.
So there is an increase. And if you go to United States now, in almost all suburban areas and all, you find a lot of tea rooms coming up.
Okay.
And that is not only Indian tea, it is Indian tea, Kenyan tea, Sri Lankan tea, Chinese tea, oolong, green tea. So tea is becoming popular slowly in the United States.
Yeah, but yes, as you rightly said, the strength of the Assam tea is something to really cherish. I've seen as you go higher in the hills, the strength goes down, but the flavor increases. But Assam has the robust strength, which
it's because of the soil, then your humidity, and all this combined. So Assam tea is very strong. In fact, Assam tea is known as the blender's pride.
Okay.
You have 90% of your Nilgiri teas or Kenyan tea or Sri Lankan tea. Put 10% Assam tea. Whatever strength and color you'll get it because of that 10%.
Okay. That's very, very interesting. So, Assam is something like, in India, Assam is that little thing which adds strength. Should I say that? We have another question which has come in, and let me just say, this is from Mr. Akshay Hewale. He says, how to figure about what you want to become in life? Now, this is a very interesting question because it's a young person, I'm sure, who's asking this. How to set upon this?
Very difficult to say, but I have seen one thing, in a very early age, one can easily make out, the parents can make out in what subject a person is strong, the boy is strong. If he's good in mathematics, arithmetic, and you can know that, okay, he's good in maths or he's good in literature. Depending on that, probably one can do a little bit of prioritizing of what one can do. But later on, it depends. I have seen in United States universities, you go to do engineering, you end up being a doctor.
Oh.
Or you go to become a doctor of medicine and you end up becoming an economist. So, it happens at that late age also. Late age in a sense, 18, 19, 20, when you are doing, that is the time you would start realizing what is good for you. I did physics.
Yeah.
Given a choice today, I would have done economics.
I did economics. Given a choice today, I would have done sociology.
Like that.
Okay.
So I have a question. Can I come in?
Yes, Rahul, please.
Yeah. My question is to both of you, and I would be happy if both of you share your views on this question. Somebody like both of you who are, sitting at a high, high post, and whatever decisions or whatever policies that you make, they have a larger impact, not only in terms of money, but in terms of people and population, and time-wise also it has long-term impact. So what I've seen is whenever we set a goal or set a target, setting a target is one part, and having a process of implementation is another part. If you're just sitting on high horses and make a big plans, and if you're not having that implementation proper, then you cannot reach that. So it's not only true for bureaucrats, but business owners, or maybe a family person, or maybe setting a goal for one's personal life. How important that implementation is, and what are your views? What should be the points? What should be the approach while implementing to reach that target?
Ujjwal, would you like to?
I think you are the guest of honor. You begin. I will add later.
What Rahul says is very, very important. I have seen throughout my life, we are very good in policy formulation, where the implementation is something, I'm talking about state, I'm not talking about national. And there also it depends on state to state. But I have seen in implementation, we really lack. And unless and until you do the whole giving a work in a very transparent way to the most efficient person, number one. Number two, we should not just hand over, you give the responsibility to somebody that you try to do it, complete it no, you have to keep monitoring it. The monitoring is very, very important, and preferably a third party monitoring throughout the project period will definitely get independent inputs to the officials who has given that work. And I can give you a simple example. In Guwahati, some years back, there was a flyover. That flyover took about 4 years to complete, or maybe more than that. And imagine if you have to build a flyover for 4 years, the difficulties faced by the people staying nearby, people who cross that area. But today I can tell you, we are constructing a flyover which is double or triple the size of that, and we are trying to complete in 10 months.
Oh.
So, which is really, I think, we have come a long way in that. So it is done because of, from the top, there has been a lot of monitoring of schemes and programs.
Oh, I'll chip in my little 2 cents. I would only say, Rahul, that given 10 days to cut a tree, I would spend 7 to 8 days in sharpening the knife or sharpening the axe, so to say. That's, one must plan well. Implementation, if you have the right people in the right places, it's all, the first 7 days is just to explain to the people, what is to be done, what is the objective. Everybody has to be on the same page. Plan well and then execute. Execution doesn't really take much time, provided everybody is on the same boat. That's important. That is what I would say. We have a couple. Yeah, please, Sanjay.
No, that's what I said. Very true.
Yeah. Okay. A couple of more questions have come in, so let me just quickly go through this. All right. All right. There is from Mr. Saurabh Gupta. There is a question saying that what is the effort of the government in improving literacy and reducing the poverty levels? It's a general question, but special focus on improving of literacy and reducing poverty levels. What are the efforts of the government?
No, we are quite serious about it. the government of India has got a lot of schemes, Samagra, Shiksha Abhiyan, and all those kind of schemes are there. And but more than that, the state government also has really helped to introduce a large number of schemes so that we can improve the quality of education. And I always believe the quality of education is very, very important. The teachers, I remember when I was in LLP school, my teachers, I still respect them because the way whatever they taught me during those days when I was 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, still I remember each and every word. I still remember how they have taught me to draw the map of India, and I can still draw in one go without making any mistake. But in between, the quality of teachers have really gone down. But now the government of Assam is very, very serious that we are taking only really qualified, educated, trained teachers. And whatever infrastructures are to be built for this schools and all, they are being done. And if you see the literacy rate, we have really improved in the country. We are a better place now.
Okay, great. All right, there's some more. There's a message from Mr. Saroj Adhikari to everyone saying that Assam and West Bengal are celebrating Vishwakarma Puja and Mahalaya today. So he has conveyed his heartiest greetings to you.
Thank you, and same to you.
There's one message from Mr. Bobby Menon saying, what is the Assam government's policy to develop the skill bank? Is there scope for skill development institutes to be set up in Assam?
Yes, we have got a skill development center. In fact, we have introduced a bill now for a skill development university, which is coming up with the help of foreign banks, and we'll be starting it soon. And we are giving a lot of importance to skill development in a different way, depending on what are the requirements. And skill is definitely one of our most important focus.
Okay. There's a question from Mr. Dilip Hake. I understand he's from Aurangabad. Mr. Hake, if you wanted to ask something about silk, if you, I can, because you're a panelist, I can allow you to ask the question yourself. Would you like to come in? You can unmute yourself and you can speak. Yeah, please.
Sir, I'm interested in knowing the Muga silk because Muga silk is the unique in Assam. It is unique in the world. So what you have done, do you have any project for development of this Muga silk?
Yeah, we have this sericulture department which is looking after. We are encouraging people to grow more and more those plants, because of which we get the Muga. And in a bigger way, we want to really introduce the main problem, let me tell you, is Muga is it's very, very expensive because the production is very low, and the because of this, it's cost of the say saris are very, very high. So now what we want to do is that we want to increase the production. And we want to have a regulation also, because there are a lot of people who try to sell which are not Muga in the name of Muga, so that there is some control over that. So there is a Muga mission. I am the chairman of this Muga mission. We have taken some steps to help the weavers by providing certain infrastructures, and we are trying to popularize it. And we want to, in fact, make it to introduce the Muga into the international market.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Dilip Hake. Okay, there are a few more questions. Yeah, there's one question from Mr. Saurabh Gupta. Saurabh ji, would you like to come open your mic, and because you are a panelist, so you may unmute yourself, and you could please speak and ask your question.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening. So,
all of my friends, when I saw those who are working in ONGC or railway, whenever they come from posting from Assam, they bring some lovely furniture. So is there a scope in this field, sir? Startups, can we recommend startup in this area in Assam?
see, you are talking about wooden furniture or bamboo furnitures? Because the
Bamboo, both, sir, both.
bamboo, yes, there is a big scope for bamboo. It's one of the biggest bamboo growing areas of the country, and then the bamboo furnitures are beautiful, really. And nowadays, you find the houses are also having floors of bamboos, which are really very, very good. There is a lot of scope. Let me tell you that the bamboo has got a lot of scope, and the bamboo mission of Government of India is also helping, and then the state government also has invested a lot of funds to improve the infrastructure of bamboo in the state. And we have also increased the areas where the bamboo is grown.
Excellent. Mr. Ajit Thomas wanted to ask a question. Would you like to come live and ask the question, Mr. Thomas? It's about agro. Yes, yes, yes. Please.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure, Mr. Krishna, to have you on our forum and to be hearing from you. It's always a learning experience. I'm an environmentalist from heart, and I have been trying to increase the green cover. Today I was reading an article from NASA, which was very encouraging for the entire world, that in the last 20 years, the green cover that NASA has recorded, India stands number 2 in the world after China, right? So there are two types of greenery being propagated. One is to create forests and to increase oxygen and the green cover. I wanted to ask, is there any new initiatives being taken in the field of agroforestry? Because India loses a lot of foreign exchange, being one of the largest importers of wood into this country for construction purposes. And in 2014, the government of India has put forward a national agroforestry policy. And it was not known to people till about 2017 about growing wood for construction purpose. Not just bamboo, but I'm talking about mahogany, about Paulownia, and species that can crop in 7 years, 10 years. Teak takes a long time. So is there any new initiatives in the field of agroforestry?
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. You're very right in a sense that this forest cover in Assam has also gone up, and I can say that if you see the national average, our average is much more than the national average. But about this scheme, yes, we are trying to implement. Forest Department is being given the responsibility to implement this. There is a scarcity of logs, and through which you can make those furnitures and all other items. So we are trying to implement, but this is in the early stages. I can't say much about it at present.
So what I was saying is this policy is now open to farmers because it can benefit farmers as well in their long-term wealth creation instead of, right? So since 2017, it's only last 4 years that it has been, this policy is now open to farmers to consider these trees as part of agriculture.
Mr. Thomas, in fact, I was in the agriculture ministry. I was one of the persons who moved this cabinet note. So I was aware of that. We're trying to implement it, but it's taking some time.
Thank you so much. I mean, I hope more moves in this field.
Great. There's a question from Mr. Prasad from, he's from Agro, and he says that their organization, that is, I think MAIDC, has been in various activities of food processing. And then he said that I would like to know that in spite of having so much, why Assam is not becoming so increasingly focused on food processing, which is one of the core sectors which can give so much of employment.
Very difficult to say that why Assam is not focusing, but we are focusing. In fact, we are focusing. For food processing industry is one of our priority areas. In fact, when there's a lockdown, most of the demands came from the food processing industries to open up, and accordingly we did that. And there are a lot of scope. The bananas. In Assam, bananas are easily available and they're grown like anything. We have a banana park. And then food processing industries, yes, Government of India recently, Ministry of Food Processing Industry or Food Processing Ministry, they have also, Ministry of Food Processing has also come up with a scheme where they have given some incentives to the people who come up with food processing industries in Assam. We are trying to focus on that. Definitely, this is one sector we want to focus on.
I come to the final question. This is a very interesting question. This is from Shiv Kumar Singh. He's saying, Mr. Sanjay Krishna sir, where do you see yourself 2 years from now?
I don't know. Destiny. You never know. But I want to have a peaceful retired life.
Good.
Where I can do a lot of reading, play a lot of golf and tennis. But never know where destiny leads.
Yes. So I think we've come to the, yes, Rahul?
Yes, we have to keep the track on time. That's
yes,
my responsibility.
Yes, yes please. So I think it's over to you now.
Yes, I would like to continue this conversation as much as possible. But since the time is less, we'll stop here. So I would like to thank Krishna sir for your time, for sharing your experience. There was a lot to learn from your experience. And thank you, Ujjwal sir, for making us, helping us to get talk to K.S. Krishna sir. And every time we are bringing in some influential personalities, some achievers, and we are getting to learn from them. At the end, I would say that I would sum up this interview by saying that the anecdote from Mr. Krishna is taking early decisions, focus, and hard work, and on top of everything, humility. Being humble, you don't lose anything by being humble. So that's the message of the day. And thank you, audience. Thank you for giving your time. And thanks to you, we'll join you with some other eminent personality and we'll learn from them. So we'll continue this series of webinar with your help, with your presence. So thank you very much and good night, everyone.
Thanks. Thank you, Rajal. Thank you, Rahul. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.